Alrighty, what's absolutely different than philosophizing something not about Pokemon for once? Oh, it's me. Wait, it's not just 8428. And, what's up with the different username? I don't see any Culvyhouse anywhere. And, a response video to Tones, huh? Well, hope nobody minds me stepping in to stop this horrible Sonic Recolor then. I can already tell someone's gonna comment about how I'm commenting on the dead horse and all, but really, he's been up his material as of recently, and one problem I have is that I can't take him seriously at times. Because, you know, you're not supposed to take Sonic Recolor seriously. Heck, I doubt he even tries to be serious in any of his commentaries. Granted, I haven't seen all of them, but basically here's the recent news. Tones made a video covering 3 of Joshua's recent commentaries, and then Joshua had his response to the video go up on the day the worst thing in history happened. Something tells me he either did intend to upload this on the 11th, or that he didn't intend for it to happen. Regardless, I have a bone to pick with this Recolor. So let's dive in and skip his seemingly potential copyrightable intro music, because I'm sure the last thing to happen to him and me is to lose our channels due to copyright strikes.
Hello YouTubers, it's Joshua8428 speaking. In this commentary, I'll be commenting on Dual Tones. This commentary is special because Dual Tones doesn't get me.
You're doing this because Dual Tones doesn't get it? Well, perfect logic there. 10 out of 10. 100 out of 100. Best logic ever. We'll disagree again. But seriously, shouldn't the exact words you said be applied to you, Joshua? Because I'm pretty sure Dual Tones knows what he's talking about. He's just throwing some pointless seals thinking that the world revolves around you, and that anyone who tries to give you advice would either be ignored or kicked out of the building. So, yes, we get it. You have flaws. Heck, as human beings, we all have flaws. We're no special rainbow. Get it because us is using Rainbow Dash? That should be taken into consideration. All because we think we know how things work. You're not one of them, Joshua, so stop it. You're not making things any better. Oh, and before we begin, I'm literally surprised you said this in the original video of yours on Ryan.
It's on the subject of Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, so spoilers if you haven't played it.
I know it's supposed to be me, but seriously dude, the game just recently got an HD remake. Heck, if it's anything to go by, it started off on the GameCube, then was ported to the Wii the same year it came out on the GameCube, then to the Wii U's eShop for the HD remake. Just because it got a remake doesn't mean it's gonna spoil anything to the people who played the game before, regardless if it's on the Wii or GameCube. I know you're trying to be safe and all that, but to most of us, it's just confusing if we already beaten the game and are confused as to why we're getting a pointless spoiler message. Besides, aside from the armor itself, barely anything story related was revealed.
No, I missed!
Then people can label whatever they don't like as ad hominem and discredit literally everything you say. This canon does potentially include valid criticisms on presentation, like how one delivers their lines, whereas an ad hominem, as far as I can see it, is an attack on someone to discredit their points. Like telling someone that their point is invalidated because they don't draw their own avatar, or tell someone that nothing they say is credible if they at all use Begonia. My point is, this whole disclaimer that you put at the beginning of your video is a pathetic attempt at a shield from criticism that you expected you were going to get because your video is on Ryan Rhino Mills, and you just assume everyone will jump down your throat on that basis alone, and not at all because maybe say your video is actually faulty with points that may actually suck. No, of course not. It's clearly because Ryan is everyone's religion in the commentary community, and you cannot touch a hair on his pretty little head unless your username is SkiHound.
First off, I'm not trying to shy away from criticism. I'm just saying that there are no rules to content, other than the definition of commentaries. Yeah, you could make the argument that I didn't know during time, but now I do. And dictionary is going to shoot on the foot later on. Second, if they're going to assume what ad hominem is and not look it up, that's their fault, not mine. I've told them where to look it up. Remember, Google is your best friend.
So, just because someone doesn't know the description of a word, it's basically their fault? Something tells me that could have been taken way out of context, especially for the people who do know what an ad hominem is. And for that reason, let's look at an example for someone who doesn't know what it is. Let's say I don't know what the meaning of ad hominem is. I can simply just type it in Google, and it'll tell me what it means. And if I want to look up examples, I can look them up. Also, I love that you say the dictionary is going to disprove a later on point, Like it's totally going to work, because a dictionary is totally the book you should be using to prove someone else wrong when you hardly bring up any good points. Isn't it such a wonderful world we live in, guys? Oh, and also, just because that commentary was 3 weeks ago, that still doesn't help you try to defend yourself from criticism at the time. I understand that you acknowledge that you're trying to take criticism, but this quite literally bites you when you least expect it to happen.
Alright, Matt, you've earned yourself the best item ever. The magic armor that prevents you from taking damage.
Wait, what is this? Why am I walking so slowly?
Wow, Manga, you actually made an extremely valid point. You know who else agrees that this is a valid point? The video, as soon as you cut back to it.
Oh, well, you need rupees for it to work, duh.
Implying that MatPat's statement was to build up to PBG's explanation, making your interjection extremely petty and invalid at best.
But isn't it stupid that MatPat asked the question when there were directions on how it works? It's like listening to the teacher on how it works when the teacher gave you directions on how to do it. So I'll say student may not know how to read, but what if they can or chose to ignore the directions? I think that's what Montcalm was trying to say.
Josh, wanna clean that earwax out because I think you missed the point that Ryan was making. MatPat was leading up to the explanation. Now, while yeah, the game tells you what's what, but it's the job of Peanut Butter Gamer and MatPat as the countdown artist to explain to the audience how the thing fucking works. You're basically telling us that they shouldn't do that because it's on the screen. Now, to go a bit further than that, what if they have the video in the goddamn background? They aren't going to be looking at the video. This is actually common practice for those who use YouTube. So what the fuck about those people? Should they just be left out because they aren't reading every little thing on the screen? Well, shit. It's almost as if not everything speaks for itself.
Okay, you have a valid point, but allow me to defend myself. There are many ways they can explain this. They can either do what they did, or they can show off the instruction. So really, neither of us were wrong. I just added the criticism against MatPat. An opinionated criticism, but still criticism.
You know what's funny there, Joshua? MatPat actually was leading up to a Peanut Butter Gamer tells MatPat how the armor works, hinting MatPat simply chose to ignore the instructions that the game gave him in order to enforce how the item works in their video. Besides, not to mention it, it's how they wanted to present the item to the viewers. So, Market Comment did point out the instructions, but as Dudotone said, they simply chose to ignore what the game told them to do because they had to build up as to how the armor worked in the first place. So, with your old point in the original commentary, if MatPat still had questions about the armor after reading it, I'm pretty sure he would have found out the hard way nonetheless. And why even bother saying that neither you or Dudotone is wrong? Technically, you asked a rather pointless question in the commentary, and she pretty much gave the reason as to why they did the build-up in the first place.
Considering this makes you practically invincible to almost attacking the game, there has to be a balance to it.
Their problem wasn't with it being balanced, it was how it was balanced. Again, as MatPat said, even if you happen to lower 2,000 rupees to 200, you still spend a decent amount of your rupees only to get an item that drains rupees. And not only does it drain rupees that you may or may not need to get items, progression methods, etc. Meaning that it is a sacrifice to a fault. And this is why I said your first point is mute at best, because the amount they paid still leads to a bigger issue of the payoff and the item being counterproductive. Oh, but can you think of a better way to balance it? I hear you say. Yes. How about give it a small to moderate set of uses before switch back to the normal tunic by default, and then gives the magic armor a cooldown? Or heck, add a magic meter. A magic meter is a 2 out of place in a Zelda game. Why not just have it run on a magic meter?
Okay, now you're just nitpicking the balance of the armor.
Haha, nitpicking. We'll be hearing that a lot throughout this video. Alright, Josh. Is Ryan nitpicking? Is he really? I mean, he explains why the armor's method of balancing is one of the absolute worst, and it drains rupees that you may need to progress further, meaning that wearing the armor can fuck you over. On top of that, his tip.
You wear it, it drains rupees, and when you get hit by an enemy, you lose even more rupees. Once you run out, it
Looks to me as if the armor depletes your rupees pretty damn fast, thus making its reward pathetic. And for something that can screw over progress, mind you, it seems entirely too unbalanced for its own good. But Josh, please continue explaining how Ryan is nitpicking the magic armor's balancing system.
1, 2. Isn't there a side mission where you collect all the post souls to free a person's soul, and the reward for doing so is that you get 200 rupees every time you come in and out of the guy's house? So there you go. You got something that will help with the balance.
So, in order to use armor, for not even that long, mind you, you have to exit whatever dungeon you're currently in, go to that one guy's house and get 200 rupees. Yeah, Josh, you know what? That's actually a fucking flawless fix, buddy. I actually can't even argue with that logic. Except for the fact that the logic is fucking retarded. Seriously, with how fast the armor depletes your rupees, you could only use it to its fullest extent for maybe a few seconds at a time. Joshua, buddy, Do you need cognition enhancing medication?
It can be useful in the fight against Ganon's final battle if you only use it there.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you try to say that clearer?
It can be useful in the fight against Ganon's final battle if you only use it there. It can be useful in the fight against Ganon's final battle if you only use it there.
Joss, I'm lost. Could you please explain what you were saying here? I don't think I can comprehend that much with how that line was said.
Or you could always use it while doing your own thing. Besides, if we use a magic meter, it would become a game breaker.
How so? How would it be a game breaker? It was only a mere suggestion by Ryan on his end, and since the game's already been completed, that would have been left up to Nintendo to even try and fix the armor itself. You know what's funny? The armor is completely optional to wear, something that Market Comment did bring up. So yeah, while that's the thing, it's still gonna be draining your worthwhile rupees that you need for your adventure if you only equip the armor just to prevent from being able to take damage. Which is another point Ryan brought up, that you seem to ignore for the lack of either ignoring it or just completely trying to go against it.
Which is why I don't think it's imbalanced. It just requires strategy with the armor, and since if his DD Max along with the Chick 2 Milk was a game breaker in boss battles, they needed to use something that isn't a magic mirror. Adding a magic mirror would mean they would have to rely on Green Potion, which breaks the game. While this isn't a nitpick, it is a flaw.
What Green Potion? From the looks on the list of items in Twilight Princess, I see no such thing as an unused / potential Green Potion anywhere. So, again, despite Ryan bringing up a magic meter for suggestive purposes, it doesn't help that you nitpicked at such a statement, and that you want to think ahead at the time. I mean, sure, you could say that you thought ahead now, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because you seem to decide to end this first part of the commentary there, and move on to the next commentary doodle things up. So I guess we'll move on too, if that'll help.
I'm Joshua, the MLP reviewer. You review something MLP related, I review it. And this is my partner, Shavik D. Pony.
Oh boy, a co-op with yourself. Now, let me be clear, this isn't inherently bad, but two things. First, your blue co-op partner is the entirety of your 24-second intro, and you're apparently that tannish pony. So, what's the deal? All it did was throw me off as there was no indicator to who is who in this video, with the exception of that V on the screen. And even that's confusing, but this brings me to problem number 2. Your character Shadvik, as we'll see later, has no differing personality from your own. This is a major issue as it's basically you with yourself. At least when I use Hand, I differ from myself, and no, not just via voice changer. The character of Hand is a sales merchant who normally speaks like he comes from an infomercial. There is a difference between my characters and I, and people who watch my videos with Hand in them will understand that, which, as we'll see later, does not at all apply to you.
If you haven't done research on the history of my character and watched Shavik D. Pony's episode review on certain things,
Which, as you can tell, is just as minute as the freaking thing is. Look, Joshua, we're not gonna bother looking something up if we're only focusing on one commentary at a time, and not a whole lot of them. Stream might not be as big as you think, but literally, as much time as we commentators put effort into our scripts, if there are things after the video that pop up, it's not like the video will automatically update the video just because of something that was said. No, if we want to do something, we'd actually have to put an annotation for said updated point, which will only distract the viewer from listening at all. I'm not entirely sure if it would, but it's just a humble guess. Also, while you're at it, talk slower. I know it's supposed to avoid in this video due to that one point earlier in the video, but seriously, talking slower isn't going to freaking kill you with what you want to say.
today we're going to be taking a look at Dual Tones 2 review of Rainbow Rocks.
Nope, we are not sitting through my old minute-and-a-half intro. I'm so glad I found a way to shorten it. My god.
This intro is way too long. Shorten it a little.
Yeah, dude, fucking shorten it, you plebeian. Never mind the fact that it's 13 seconds now and has been 13 seconds even prior to this video's release. So his information was even outdated when this video was first posted. So, problem solved?
It doesn't change the fact that this was still a problem during that time.
It also doesn't help that our poor Sonic Joshua here, fails to understand that pointlessly interjecting will actually solve anything. Look, despite that, it's just an intro sequence. Something as minute as that doesn't need to be talked about in such a video. But this is coming from a person who had to skip 43 seconds of your actual video because you were lazy to even be creative with this intro.
Not to mention it's way too boring to our taste, but that's just us.
Yeah, it is just you. I get this is more of a review than a commentary, but the thing is, you don't explain why you find it boring, which would very much help your point against me. I mean, yeah, it was pre-emotion doodle reviews, But that's not what you bring up, so I'm sitting here being unable to really care.
How do you not see what's right in front of you? And actually pay attention to your own intro, you can see what the problem is. It's called show, don't tell.
And by they, you mean yourself, right? Really, as Doodletone said, it's literally a co-op with yourself. There's no voice changer to indicate a change in character, nothing. So really, the whole show and tell thing could really apply to anyone who needs something to back up the points, much like you, Joshua.
Welcome to Season 2 of Crappy Cartoons, and I feel like starting strong by starting with some of your requests. I may not get to all of them, and if I don't get to one, don't fret. They'll be pushed into a vault until I take one out and review it. So, what if I chose to review to kick off 2016? Why a full-length review of a full-length movie to a show I covered 4 times last year? And if you guessed My Little Pony, congratulations, you know what movie I chose to review, and you know me well enough to make a connection. Let me make this clear. Despite the fact I have reviewed the show 4 times, it has a 1 out of 4 good episode rating to me, so obviously I am not a brony. Aside from the pilot, which was meh, and the 4 episodes I reviewed, and this one, are the only things I've seen of My Little Pony. I bring this up because this is going to be vital later in the review, and we'll get there when we get there.
Spoiler, she didn't do any research. Not that this is a bad thing, so it's kind of funny for people to not get it if it's entertaining. But from Doodletone's tone... What's so funny? Doodletone's tone. Anyways, from Doodletone's tone, it's not going to be entertaining.
Alright, sure, not entertaining, but getting on my case about not doing research, we've been over this. That's the fucking point. My overall point of the review is that the movie is in fact utter fan service. Only those who have watched the entire series would understand the movie to its fullest extent. My minimalist amount of knowledge and research basically shows what an outsider who just happened to have found this movie would understand. Despite how many people fucking hated that review, I stand behind my reasoning for how this review is structured. And the fact that you're on my case about not doing much researching of My Little Pony shows you're still missing the point.
I didn't say there's a problem with you not doing research. It's the way you delivered the review. It came off as dull. Heck, I just stated this. Spoiler, she didn't do any research. Not that this is a bad thing, so it's kind of funny for people to not get it if it's entertaining. But from Doodletone's tone... What's so funny? Doodletone's tone. Anyways, from Doodletone's tone, it's not going to be entertaining, making this entirely pointless.
Oh look, another pointless segment. Yay. Look, Joshua, might I explain the fact that Doodletones literally brought up a screenshot that the two of you were discussing via Skype and focus on the fact that the review was purposely done with minimal explanation, because the movie in question treated the audience with little information at occasional points. AKA, the reason Doodletones recommended the movie to people who even watched MOP to begin with. The other half being that she also said in that Skype chat that Rainbow Rocks is fan service, so the people who created the movie gave Doodletones no reason to care at all. So you're saying that this point is entirely pointless only proves Doodletones to be correct, as you stuck with your original opinion. And heck, the original video of Doodles literally said she is not a brony, despite watching a few parts or episodes of the show. Just because she is not a brony doesn't mean you have to try and be such a prick about it. Sheesh.
The movie starts in a cafe with some singing and arguing. The singers are our villains, the Dazzlings, Adagio, Sonata, and Aria. Not that it would matter because I can't tell the difference between the three, so unless the movie explicitly says their name, I'll just call them the blue one, the purple one, and the yellow one.
Did you even watch the movie? Because 2 of the characters' names get said in the movie.
Did you at all pay attention to that little part there you just played? I imagine not. I basically said unless they say the names, I will refer to them as this. Of course I know there are times their names are said. Hell, that's how I knew the names in the first place. Either that, or for someone who did absolutely no research and didn't watch the movie, I sure as hell know the names of some pretty basic villains.
Here's my problem with this. You say this as if they have no personality. Isn't Adagio the leader, Sonata the ditzy one, and Aria the moody one? You basically don't care to pay attention to.
Did you not even see the bottle or understand that she did her gosh darn research? Way to go with having another point fly over your head, Joshua. You sure are making many people dislike your video as we speak. Look, if Doodletones did research things about the movie, she probably would have found out about the personalities and actually set them in the review, but probably didn't because she made this review with a purpose. Which she did, considering she's shown her screenshot of the Skype chat, something that you never brought up once in your response video at all. It's like you find out one piece of evidence that you wanted to talk about, but then didn't because you couldn't find anything related to suit your needs better than Doodletones. So, really, why bother with these segments when you barely talk whatsoever?
Anyway, they decide to allow Twilight into the band. Unfortunately, she can't play any instruments, so instead she'll sing. Yay, I guess you're Tara Strong singing. She's actually really good when she wants to be fair.
Even though it's not Tara Strong that's singing, but another singer that voices Sunset Shimmer, where Twilight's singing voice is similar to Tara Strong's Twilight voice, which is similar to the main protagonist in Lollipop Chainsaw, and no, we never played the game.
Okay, sure, you make a valid point. But, if I may, you did get on my case for maybe not watching the movie, which you happily assumed of me. But then you talk about Lollipop Chainsaw before saying that you haven't played it, confirming it. Am I smelling the stench of a double standard going on here? Actually... Shit, did I leave the pizza in the oven?
Being a hypocrite does not make you one, but even if that wasn't true, I actually looked up Lollipop Chainsaw, so basically, not a hypocrite.
Did you literally call Doodletones a hypocrite? Only to say you actually looked up Lollipop Chainsaw afterwards, then saying that you're not a hypocrite? Look, nobody's lying here. In fact, nobody should be lying about anything. But the fact of the matter still stands. Calling Doodle a hypocrite for something you haven't proven doesn't work that way. Moving on with your original video, I'm just gonna say that, no, Tara Strong is not Sunset Shimmer's voice actor, but instead it's Rebecca Shoyet. The only thing you prove is that Tara Strong is the voice actor for Juliet Starling, which, as Doodletones mentioned, voiced for Twilight Sparkle. So trying showing me to prove that Doodletones lied about you not playing Lollipop Chainsaw, because I'm still waiting on that.
By the way, have I mentioned yet how much I love Trixie's character? It's a cartoon, and yet we still have characters hamming it up and overacting just so they can take the spotlight off the scenery. I think that's what's actually called chewing the scenery, and Trixie does it to a very entertaining extent in these final moments. I'm not gonna lie. Kinda makes me want to see more of her in future reviews.
I kinda like it for those reasons, but I think the reason why she's doing this is to pop up the audience. She does redeem herself in No Second Princess and Magic Duel, mostly No Second Princess.
I know you call this a review, but Josh, this is a commentary, buddy, and you interjecting to agree in a mumbly way that makes it impossible to understand you pointlessly pads out the video and becomes utterly redundant. It's like, allow me to attempt to add something, but not at all speak clearly in a way where you can understand me. Look, I'm aware you have a speech impediment, and I'm aware you cannot control it, but could you not at least try to make an effort to make yourself just a little clearer? It's kind of important.
Well, it's not my fault you can't understand me. It's your fault for not looking it over multiple times. This is as clear as I'm going to get.
And we're not faulting you for that, Joshua. You just need to make your reasons more clearer to the people who might need a little bit more of a reason as to why you say what you say.
The girls then have an argument that helps feed the Dazzlings as the bad girls have basically won, and nothing can possibly stop them as the heroes are trapped and everyone else is basically under their spell, except Miss Deus Ex Machina, whose name I had to look up because they don't tell you who it is at all, because she has not been relevant until this point, and even after this, she's still not as relevant as she has no speaking parts. This, for those who are confused as I was, is DJ Pony, also known as Vinyl Scratch, and you can go ahead and make the connection of what she does.
You know, it kind of defeats the purpose of not looking up the reference if you have to look it up. Heck, some of them I got in the movie since I'm a brony. When you do research on the references, you might as well forget about not looking it up rule, so you might have a good perspective on this.
Dude, it's a character name. That's really important to know, to the point you have to look it up if you're not aware of who it is. Besides, I demonstrate how lost a new viewer would be by even stating the fact that this character was not addressed even once prior to this part of the movie, where she is a vital character. It's kind of important to know who this character who saves the day is, and since the name is literally nowhere to be found in the movie, someone who watches my review, or the movie, is going to want to know who she is, so I had to inform them.
Not really, cause the name in research purposes is important. No research purposes, not important. It's the action that's important. Now, if the character had no action performances, then the name isn't important in non-research purposes.
It still doesn't help that Final Scratch came out of nowhere to save the main six at the last second to save the day from the villainous girls. Of course, since Doodletones are probably some amount of people that aren't bronies, it doesn't really matter what the reference was. Seriously, Final Scratch is never mentioned once in the movie as Doodletones puts it. So, in all seriousness, if I happen to watch the movie on a whim, I also would be confused, because the movie never tells the audience who she is. Which is why Doodletones came to the conclusion that she recommends it to people who have watched My Little Pony, and not the newcomers. Also, gee, you so like to randomly skip things all of a sudden. So I'm afraid we're reaching the last stretch here, folks. Let's see what Joshua has to say for himself in the final moments of his video.
I'll be commentating on Dick Sponge Entertainment and his commentary on me. Now before I begin this, I will admit that I made a short cutaways for no reason and will do text every time I use 10 words or less. Now with that out of the way,
Let's get dangerous.
What? I don't think I caught all of that, so there will be text wherever you have less than 10 words to say because you made a lot of cuts? Josh, is your editor screwing up? I guess that would be the only way I could see the cell phone box screen being here.
hey Dualtons, am I asking someone to make a script? Cause wording isn't my best suit.
Hey, Joshua, can you stop with these pointless interjections? Because it's still not helping you. Oh, and by the way, I decided to screenshot one of your videos via my phone. I mean, seriously, there's no way in all of Miwa did you manage to make the resolution of the video like that with any purposes whatsoever. And by the way, you yourself have stated that wording is your strong suit, which really means that it's you that's worked on the scripting. I know that you acknowledge that in the comment section that you need help with scripting, but you clearly could have done this on any of your videos before jumping to the fact that the scripts were fine as they were and made the videos. Would have probably saved you part of the trouble there.
Today's content, I'll be commenting on once again the mysterious presenter as most recent animated atrocity. I'm going to be honest, I saw this first before I looked at what he reviewed. I don't think the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot is all that bad.
Here we come across a pretty big problem in a lot of Joshua's videos. So many of his targets are from, not that the video itself is actually bad, but, oh, I just like this thing, I need to defend its honor. This is not an opinion piece, this is a commentary. Treat it like a commentary.
What kind of commentary? An expression of opinions or an offering of explanation? Because, to be honest here, I'm using both.
So,
Here's the thing, Josh. Dick Sponge's point was that your opinions will not invalidate points. Opinions are not arguments. In other words, it means nothing here. On top of that, we kinda have a genre of videos here that are used for the purposes of criticism, debate, and/or entertainment. Thus meaning, while you can have your opinion, it kinda holds no bearing here.
I know that, but commentary doesn't always have to have points. It can be just opinions. Though it would be nice if I actually include someone in with this.
What? Okay, seriously, Josh, did you literally say that commentaries don't have to have points, and then just not explain why? I'm sorry, but I'm literally on the edge of my seat trying to understand what the flying frick you mean by that. Sure, people can have their opinions and all, but in that case, you shouldn't have the opinions themselves be the point you're trying to make if you're trying to prove a point. Seriously, Josh, what kind of world do you come from where you have such audacity to not explain things?
In this version of the show, the Powerpuff Girls have moved to grade school. Miss Tina has moved there too for some reason. And you know, I'm not too bothered with this, in principle. The girls going to an actual grade school helps the show relate better to the target audience. And there is much more room for stories in an elementary or middle school rather than a kindergarten. However, remember what I said about cohesion? This show has none between episodes. If you want to have the girls in a grade school, you cannot have episodes like Little Aki Lost, where Bubbles brings her stuffed animal to school and thinks they could actually pitch a softball. In elementary school, she's at an age where she's getting to be too old for that. Especially if the rest of her peers start picking on her for hanging on to childish behavior. You know, considering getting bullied for looking like a baby was the first thing that happened to her when she actually came to school. In Horn Sweet Horn, Bubbles gets fun of her believing unicorns exist, but she doesn't get fun of for having a stuffed animal through a sports game. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Okay, I'm going to start telling. Every time I turn to pick a certain point of the show, I'm going to mark it. As for instance, you do realize that a certain part of the episode will not destroy the entire show. There has to be enough flaws that aren't nitpicks in order for it to be considered bad.
This leads to another problem in Joshua's videos. He loves to use annoying buzzwords that pop up way too much. In what realm is complaining about a lack of cohesion and continuity nitpicking?
1, he only said cohesion. 2, as long as they are making morals, it doesn't matter. Heck, some of these things link to the moral, so it does have cohesion.
Cohesion, the action or act of forming a united whole. Alright, let's pull out 2021 gamers here and tell you straight up. In the Powerpuff Girls, the status quo is God. At the end of each episode, everything is reset in a way where it doesn't really matter what the moral is. That said, yes, the morals do hold a purpose. The morals hold a purpose for its younger targeted audience, not the characters. Teaching kids, don't be a dick, there's a time and place for goofing off, and just be yourself. So I won't say the morals are entirely pointless, but they are in no way there to keep cohesion, Josh.
Sure, there is no cohesion in the moral, but there is in the story.
And the award for the most pointless interjection just to agree with a point is... Joshua Culvyhouse. But seriously, what is up with that interjection, Josh? I at least try to make my interjections worthwhile, but all the while, you keep bringing up in a few short seconds of talking, where you just run out of ideas and decide to agree with Doodle Jones, just for the sake of agreeing with her. I don't get you, Joshua. I really don't.
Another slightly smaller problem is his annoying little tally game. It pops up almost all the time. So many of his videos have this little tally game trope that hasn't been used since like 2011. Even if it was used today, you still use it way too much.
Does it really matter? No, really, does it matter? As long as I'm making points, that's all that matters.
But see, the issue with that is your nitpick counter isn't making points. It's just calling whatever Mr. Enter is saying at the time a nitpick and then moves on. And what's funny about this, and this is going to be a huge revelation, technically nitpicks aren't wrong. Yeah, they could be seen as tedious, and yeah, enough of them can cause an issue, but if it becomes an issue, you're going to have to explain why it's an issue for us. However, you don't actually do this. The vague counter is all we've got to go off of.
Once again, it's their fault for not paying attention. If they don't know, then they need to ask.
But just, many people won't get it regardless, because that tally gauge is literally nothing good. Because it only shows up once in the whole video. Though to be fair, why do we even have that in the first place? DISOWNED Enterprises is literally correct. It's saying that such a thing doesn't need to be here whatsoever, as it's shown way too much in your videos for no good reason. Other than that, you never explain in the original video why the nitpicks were a bother to you, other than to have your pointless tally gauge pick it up for us, and never be able to tell us what the flying fudge of an explanation as to how that was a nitpick. Sure, some people are good at knowing what nitpicks are, but to the people that don't, they need the explanation to understand things, Joshua. Also, not to mention the one time it does show up, it's freaking purple. Which, really, people aren't gonna notice it very easily to begin with.
Okay, while they don't outright state this, it is possible that puberty is taking over the minds of Buttercup. Heck, some people can change for puberty. Now use your head, that's what I do.
And again, you missed the point, because what DISOWNED was calling you out on was in fact making baseless and flimsy arguments at best with absolutely no proof behind them. You speculating things trying to put logic where it doesn't belong as if you're watching film theory won't actually do shit for this argument. Want to know what would be good for this argument? Providing evidence that actually debunks Mr. Enter's point about Buttercup never acting this way before. And if, oh, you can't do that, then his point isn't actually all that bad now, is it?
Even though I was providing a theory on why Buttercup was acting like this and not proving that she acted like this before, yeah, I could have worded better, which is why I need someone to check my script. But still.
Which is why I need someone to check my script. See, Josh, that's the biggest problem. You could have set aside this video to even have someone check the script and help you with it. But since you didn't at the time, I'm literally quite surprised you didn't take your own words into action until after the video was uploaded. Also, addressing your point in the original commentary, changed through puberty? Seriously, the Powerpuff Girls aren't even teenagers. They would have been shown to have at least a growth on height if that was the case, but it never happened. Just because of a different voice actor doesn't mean it is a sign of puberty. Besides, puberty for girls usually occurs at the ages of 10 and 14, and none of the wiki pages I've seen of the Powerpuff Girls tells us their age. I'll admit, I didn't see the show for myself yet, but I'm pretty sure they would have told us the ages of the Powerpuff Girls if they had the chance. But seeing as they didn't, it mostly proves you wrong yet again.
So a kid comes running by, and Buttercup trips him because she can do whatever she wants because everyone else is high on ecstasy. And she is not because... Okay, it's never explained why the Powerpuff Girls are not high on ecstasy right now.
I thought it was obvious. The rainbow is strong enough to take control of them. Seriously, you have a brain enter, use it!
Okay, from what I can tell from your garbled alien speech, that barely even counted as an explanation. That was more of a cop-out, if anything.
Hotter than a motherfucking fiesta of fat bitches in a porta potty, hotboxing some Louis the 13th out the bong, my nigga, like God.
It's called common sense. If someone has superpowers, chances are of them resisting varies. 2. Implying that I didn't give them ad hominem before I gave them the answer.
Oh, so it's okay to give a quote-unquote ad hominem if you critique them first. Okay, I gotcha. You're still arguing on the basis of speculation and later inconsistencies. Now please eat a dick.
And you're arguing a theory that's based on fact.
What theory? All I see is a Sonic Recolor trying to prove he's relevant to the commentary community, but failing entirely.
Try again.
No, you. Okay, seriously, are you trying to annoy DudeTones at this rate? I don't know due to or after this video, but seriously, stop spouting quotes. Otherwise, I'll have to make you cut down the mightiest tree in your nearby forest. With your Sonic Recolor!
You know, I'm sure we're all gonna have a lot of fun watching this in 5 to 10 years. This show, it's gonna be up there with all the greats. You know, like Quack Pack and Yo Yogi. Those are the classics. Also, why is Bubbles affected now but not before? It's getting more distracting by the second.
Because she was close enough to the rainbow to be affected? Really, do you really need a clue to get the obvious?
I love this part because not only is using the exact same cop-out argument as used before, but now it's squashed right in his face. What's with the other girls? Why are they not being affected? Why is it just Bubbles?
Isn't it obvious? The rainbow doesn't have enough power to affect the other two.
Josh, give up. This episode is inconsistent at best. Really, it's not a bad thing to admit defeat and say you're wrong every once in a while. You don't have to keep pulling off excuses from the anal beads that come out of your anus. Because honestly, it doesn't work. They are in the rainbow, and if it affects one at this point, it should affect them all. But it doesn't. So your argument is continued speculation and flimsy excuses.
Buster and Buttercup are strong-minded, so it would make sense why they wouldn't be affected by it. Enter doesn't use his head and come up with good theories. And if I have to explain where it makes sense, then you got a problem.
But that still doesn't explain how, in the episode, neither Princess or Buttercup weren't affected by the rainbow. Especially when they were near it later in the same episode. It doesn't help the fact that the episode didn't explain how Bubbles is the only one out of the girls to suddenly become under the rainbow's influence, despite the other two would have been under the same influence at some time while they were there. Basically put, as Dudatone said, it's mostly because the episode is inconsistent at best, since things aren't well explained. If you want the audience to keep up what's going on, they need to explain how things work. And, if done right, find a way to break the influence or power that's happening in the scene. Just saying that the rainbow doesn't have enough power seems ridiculous on the writer's part, since, if that was the case, Buttercup and Princess would have been able to defeat the rainbow and break Bubbles out of its influence before things got worse. But from what the episode shows... yeah, I guess you can tell they did a great job trying to stick with the script, huh? Also, can you stop calling these theories? Because theories are something entirely different than what you think they are, buddy.
Okay, here's a problem that I've noticed that was most consistent with all of the episodes, even the more tolerable ones. The pacing of the stories. The pacing is absolutely shit most of the time. Sometimes they linger way too long on certain scenes, like here in the Panda's Raid, which takes up about half of the episode. At other times, they move too quickly, like the anarchy down below. You're supposed to show that this joy is bad, and to do that, we're gonna need to see a little bit more mayhem.
I thought there was enough mayhem. You see, Enter, there is little time that they can show the mayhem. If they let go too quickly, it will leave others confused. You also need to keep kids in mind.
Once again, this is not an opinion piece, this is a commentary. You can't just say,
I like this part, that means you're wrong,
and just expect to get away with it.
Implying I didn't explain the facts on time constraints. Pacing itself isn't the problem with the show in general, it's the time constraints.
Oh boy, this is a fun argument. Whenever I hear time constraints excuse bad pacing, I legit want to punt them over a backyard fence. Having an ambitious idea and knowing how to condense it are two aspects of a show that need to be taken into consideration. I mean, hell, they have a 22-minute time slot. You know, they could use that to fix the ass backwards pacing of the show instead of trying to shove two plots into one. And before you say, oh, the original show did that, sure, but they also knew how to fucking pace.
Tell that to Cartoon Network and see where that will get you.
Try telling that to some people that probably may or may not listen to you, coupled with the fact that this has been said by the Sonic Recolor himself, thinks everything revolves around him, and then ends the video early, even though there was more time spent in Dudatones' original video before this Recolor came barging in, and decided to try to remove some points for the sake of making himself look good to his fans. If he had any.
Final thoughts. While this wasn't the worst commentary because some of the points I made could have been bad wording, you basically missed the point. Dudatones, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot.
Oh my stars! You can't be joking me! Did you literally call Dudatones an idiot? Because, seriously Josh, that right there is not cool. I don't care what you think it was. It just isn't. There is no justification for this, no explanation. Dudatones obviously handled countering your point well, until you came bawling around at the speed of sound to tell that, in the end, Dudatones is an idiot. Seriously, what did Dudatones ever do to you, man? Did he murder your Recolorist family or something? What? Just because he did free commentaries on you, those videos had a clear reason as to why they needed to be commentated on. I honestly do not know why you seem arrogant to call someone out like that. when, especially you yourself, accepted to say you can't take criticism due to ad hominem attacks. Seriously dude, calm the frick down. I've never even called you an idiot once, so what is up with this sudden need to try and spark a pointless war? Let's move on to my final thought before I blow some fuses. Look, Joshua, there really was no need to respond to Doodle Tones. You could have kept the whole ordeal and handled in the comments on her video or Skype, but seeing as you made this video for the sake of trying to get back at Doodle Tones once again, seems to show me you haven't really learned your lesson yet. While yes, there are many things that may seem wrong to you, Doodle Tones seems to know how well to handle stuff like these. While you barely made any great points, or does intervene just to say, I agree with this, and I can't add anything else to this, so let me just say that I agree with this and move on to the video. You should not, and I mean, never, ever put interjections like that just to agree with the person. If you actually want to prove that you agree with that person, you're gonna need to add on to what they say with your own words. Don't just leave us hanging in the middle and expect us to figure out some parts of your video. I'm not saying you can't respond to Doodle Tones, by all means, I'm seriously not. But this response video, at least to me, is nothing more than a waste of your time and anyone else who comes across this. You say you know things better than anyone, yet you don't seem to have the idea to try and explain the videos Doodle Tones commentated on to try and prove your point. While I'm unsure if you will ever learn your lesson or not, you just need to know when to admit defeat. Learn the freaking fact when something you've said is wrong. Don't go blaming anyone that they're a hypocrite for something they just say, even if you do try to elaborate on this. This makes you seem more open to, wait, what am I saying? You're a dead horse by this point. Who gives a crap about you anyways? Well, I think I'm gonna go sing the night away in my own home. Hope you have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen.